Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the 2024 panel. I'm with another beautiful guest and friend of mine, this beautiful, gorgeous Pisces soul, and we share our Mars and Taurus in common. So, we've got a little thing going on here. And we're going to have a really great chat today, and I'm always excited to have Amber back. So thank you so much for coming back onto the panel, darling.
Thank you for having me once again. I feel like I just love our chats.
Same. We do a lot of DM chats. I have a lot of DM chats with a lot of astrologers. Like we're constantly DMing. Yeah. It needs to happen.
It needs to happen. You need to unpack things.
Yeah. With someone who understands the language. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes, not in an offensive way, but a muggle doesn't understand. Like we can go, oh, but Mars is here and then Pluto's here and then this is there. And then someone's like, okay, it sounds like you're speaking Japanese, like to an English person. And I don't know what that means, but I'll support you. But it's like, but when you speak to an astrologer, they're like, oh, babe, holding you in that. Like, this is big shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that moves us straight into the question that I'm asking everyone for the 2024 panel. As everyone has known, each time you jump on here, you're going to hear the guests answer this question around a transit in 2023, which has been an exponential year of shadow walking and revelations. And it's been a pretty big upheaval year. But again, collectively, but then when we look micro, what's happening in our own chart can really amplify that. Because for some people, I'm doing readings and I'm like, oh, you've got no Pluto action happening. Like, what the fuck are you whinging about? Like, you've got no Pluto action. And that's just going to be how it is sometimes. I mean, yes, we're still feeling the collective consciousness, but, when we know what's going on in our own chart, like that's where this question was derived from, was what's a big aspect that's been huge for you or life-changing for you in 2023 in the collective, but on a micro level, and how has knowing the astrology like prepped you or preened you for that? Like, how has that helped you, Amber? So share away.
Well, firstly, I'm experiencing multiple transits at once, so it's all happening for me. But I think the one that really is deepening my relationship to the concept of time is, of course, Saturn. And Saturn entering Pisces, I knew was going to be a really big transit for everyone. So not just me as a Pisces. And in fact, I haven't experienced Saturn on my sun yet. So I've got that joy to come. But I have experienced Saturn conjunct my Mercury and squaring my moon. So it has been a time. And I think the most impactful was the direct. The retrograde, it's kind of like, so when we experience transits to our chart, not all the times, but sometimes we have a direct, a retrograde, and then a direct again. And this for me is really like, wow, this is a deepening of this. I'm not just getting one little lesson, I'm getting multiple lessons for an extended period of time because it's on those like station degrees. So I'm having a very long time of sitting with this energy and really needing to be with some hard truths about my reality and my behaviors and my patterns. And it has really helped me to gain awareness into some of the self-sabotaging and avoidance things that I'm doing. So that's just being straight up, because that's Saturn in Pisces. And so
no more escaping, darling.
No, your girl can't escape anymore. She has to grow up. But knowing the astrology, I think it has really, in terms of mental health, I have to say, because it's Saturn in Pisces on Mercury. I know that I have the tools to get myself through hard times, but this was just another layer of support that I just can't even, it's like there's another layer of support in that it really helps to take you out of the victimhood and out of the direct experience and lift you into a position where you can actually detach somewhat I mean, it's like I know hard things are coming and I'm still experiencing them, but I'm simultaneously observing it, and it helps me to feel less victimized by this whole thing. So from a mental health perspective, I would say huge.
And that's just a great tip, Amber, because we can't escape transits. So whether you know about them or whether you don't, they're happening. Like that's the reality of it. We meet people, we don't know them from a bar of soap, and we can tell them last year would have been like this because Pluto was on their sun. You know, like it's happening, right? And so to be able to support your mental health and your nervous system without fully fucking breaking down, and especially a Saturn in Pisces transit to a Pisces, a Mercury, you know, squaring your moon, like that's a big time, you know. And it's the restriction and the limitation being held, because there'll only be a portion of Pisces degrees from like 8 to 13 or something that don't get the 3 hits exactly. And so for me, I always teach, you know, or clients, or when I'm teaching, is that if you're getting the 3 hits, I mean, outer planets, it's more common, but even like a Mars retrograde or a Venus retrograde or Mercury retrograde, if you're getting the 3 hits, there's a big lesson for you, because not everyone gets the 3 hits. And when Amber was talking about the stationing, you know, that experience, because I had Uranus station at 10 degrees, like, well, I mean, your Mars in Taurus isn't 10, is it?
No, it's 19.
19. Okay. Well, that was close because he's stationed at 18. So I've had him stationed on my Mars, which means it's 4 months on a planet, because it's slowing down, it stations retrograde, and then it's got to go back up, or it's doing the opposite. It's coming back, it's stationing direct, and it's it can literally be 4 months. I had Uranus on my Sun Chiron exact at 18 degrees for 4 months. And it was close to your Mars, but not exact, right? So we see these nuances, and we see the lessons where sitting in that is the medicine. Like that is what the astrology is teaching us. And especially Saturn. Saturn is a hard lesson. Like it's a hard medicine. I mean, no offense, but Uranus, bring on a Uranus fucking transit. Doesn't really bother me. But a Saturn transit, motherfucker.
Yeah. That's the perfect word for it. It's like, wow, I haven't, and you know, I'm experiencing Pluto stuff and Uranus stuff. This is something else. Like Saturn is something else. It's
exactly.
like,
well, I had Uranus all over my Taurus stellium. But when Saturn was in an Aquarius and squaring that at the same time, no, because I've also got Pluto opposite my moon at the same time, and I'm like, it was the Saturn that was and I'm a day chart, so Saturn's actually my good guy. Like I've got him exalted, he's in his house of joy, like fucking me and Saturn are besties. But Saturn in Aquarius is shit, and I'm glad it's not happening again for another 30 years. I'm loving Saturn in Pisces, but that's because of all of I don't have mutable stuff really in my chart. I've got that beautiful Taurus stellium, all the sextiles, but for all of you Pisces planets, inner planets, you know, Venus, Mars, Mercury in Pisces, and Sun, of course, Moon. These are big lessons for sort of 2.5 years. And if you're getting the 3 hits like you, Amber, I'm glad you used the word mental health to support you, that astrology is supporting you. It's a tool that gives that other level, that layer. And I also wrote that you can do the hard things, darling. You can do
100%. You can get yourself out of, and I feel like mentally I'm quite resilient. However, I did spiral, and but I got myself out of it. You know, it's like, and yes, I could have done it without the astrology. I'm not saying that like I'm reliant on this tool. However, it just really does help put things in perspective.
It's not a crutch at all by any means.
Yeah, exactly. Because you
can't. And when it is, it destroys you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing this huge ongoing transit that you're in at the moment. I mean, I'm doing a lot of these recordings, as I've said in some of the other videos, in the eclipse portal of the Libra and Taurus in October here of 2023. So I'm pretty much doing half of them in this 2 weeks, which is awesome. But we're feeling big things. So it's sort of nice when we're in the cauldron, when we're in that astrology soup, to be sharing about what's coming up or sharing what's unfolding. It's nice, you know?
It kind of is. I feel like almost, I mean, we're working in liminal time, and we're not really, like, astrology is time traveling, right? So it's helpful to sometimes tap into the energy of the eclipse portal to kind of, like you said, be in that soup. You know, pull the past, pull the future, be in the present. It's like all happening at once, and then we get to energetically just be in it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, for
I don't
sure.
mind. I don't mind a bit of this kind of stuff during eclipse season.
No, me either. It's sort of, and we're actually both meeting. We're meeting today on the 20th, which is the actual Mercury Cazimi. So it's going to be a great talk. I mean, I've already had an amazing morning, so I'm excited to talk. So Amber has chosen a really great topic that is right at the end of the year, and this is the Mars retrograde from Leo, 6 degrees Leo to 17 degrees Cancer. So as per usual, I'm going to hand it over to my guest and we'll converse and I'll take notes. And, we've got all the things happening and I'm looking forward to hearing you unpack this transit because it is a little bit of a unique one. There's some pretty big, there's some pretty big aspects going on. I've got every single date, with aspects. There's some, it's a bit of a big time actually, this one. So I'm looking forward to listening to you. So yeah, Mars retrograde 2024. It feels like we only just got through the Mars and Gemini retrograde for some reason. I'm just like, what the hell? Why is Mars retrograding again already? What the heck?
I know, but it is a rarer transit. And so it's like, for me, when you asked me what I wanted to pick, I was like, I got to pick that one because I can energetically feel it's going to be big. And it's a long time away, but it's not at the same time. Look at how fast this year has gone already. We're basically like in December, if practically that's how I feel anyway. So next year is going to go fast as well. And I think that the impact that this transit has, which is, of course, it's spilling over into 2025 as well. So we're kind of overlapping, but a lot is brewing and starting at the end of 2024. So we need to be prepped. We need to be primed because I think that, again, it's going to be impactful collectively, 100%, but also very much so on a personal level. I mean, if we can all reminisce in that energy of Mars retrograde in Gemini, I don't know anyone who didn't feel like they were losing the plot. That was very discombobulating, and it is, and so it's not going to be exactly the same as that because it's a different archetype and different aspects. Mars in Gemini was squaring Neptune, and that was a whole different thing. That was so liminal and so disorienting. This is a different kind of vibe because we have Mars retrograding through Leo and Cancer and making very intense aspects to Chiron and Pluto. And first of all, Mars in opposition to Pluto, in cardinal and fixed. And then even Mars square to Chiron, so we experience these transits that often, they're not unusual, but the fact that this is a retrograde and we're having 3 hits, and like we spoke about earlier, it's the deepening and the unfolding, and it's going to go on for months, and it's going to build, and it's going to be very impactful. So, that's why I was just like, yep, we're going to talk about Mars retrograde today, and try and, prepare ourselves, but also at the same time, be open to how it might present, because we can't be rigid in the way that we use astrology. Or even me, I'm not into prediction. I'm literally into reading energy, and that's neutral as possible. And I never tell anyone what to do. If someone asks me, I'm never that type of astrologer that's like, you need to do this, you need to not do that. I like to empower the person. So this is about empowering you with the knowledge and the tools so you can sit with your own intuition and make the choices accordingly, because that's also working with Mars. This is hugely about power. So we're going to talk about power and control and manipulation and how we can prime ourselves with the energetic tools and resources so that we are our source of power, because that's what Mars is all about, because it's the warrior energy. It's connected to our will, our drive, our assertion. And, collectively, as we awaken or we go through this awakening process, it's about understanding that, oh, this is actually a journey of claiming our power back. And not say that we can give our power away, because I don't believe that we can give it away, but we can definitely close it down and disown it and not tap into the potential. And so therefore, when we allow ourselves, or well, you know, this is also about boundaries as well. Mars helps to enforce boundaries. So when we don't have the awareness around what our boundaries are and how we are triggered out of our boundaries, then yeah, we're going to unconsciously or maybe consciously give our power away to things outside of us as they present. And that is what the opportunity for this Mars retrograde is. It's mostly always about being with the will, the power, and the drive, and sitting with life's intention as, you know, as creative beings, you know, being in co-creation and working with or working in alignment with authenticity, instead of, again, going into I guess it's like going from a relationship where we are codependent on the external and what is feeding us, and come into a relationship again of sovereignty. So that's, you know, overall my kind of energetic take on it.
And I think that it's the words that you're using are so perfect about reclaiming power, like Mars stations retrograde in Leo. So I love the words that you've used. You've come back to that sovereignty and power and, you know, just drive. Like, you know, Mars and the sun have such a, you know, interconnectedness, and then Mars is going to be in the sun sign of Leo. So I'm loving the words that you're using, Amber. Like, this feels really, you know, it's like it's fueling the creative fire. And just think, if we just sort of touch on, even though it's not the same degree, but we've just experienced Lilith through Leo and then the Venus retrograde through Leo. So the fact that Mars begins his retrograde in Leo, it's the earlier parts and it's not the same, but there's, again, it's the reclaiming, like you said, to really step into the power and sovereignty. So loving this, love it.
Yeah, and I found it really interesting as well, just in the synchronicity with all this. I mean, it's very strong Leo, Aquarius, Cancer, Capricorn. It's like these dynamic themes like constantly coming up, and we're having to really be with these archetypes in our chart, regardless of whether you have personal planets in there. We're all 12 signs and we've all got an interplay of these energies. And, you know, it's like, obviously there's a very strong need to gain further awareness in our Leo house in many ways, coming from all sorts of perspectives. Like you said, we just had huge Venus retrograde in Leo, and now with Mars stationing retrograde in Leo. So should I read out some dates? Yeah. So I've got a lot of dates, but what I might do is chunk them into categories. So in terms of like key dates that you might want to write down or remember, the actual retrograde is on the 7th of December 2024 at 6 degrees. So also noting that you want to look at your charts and see where these degrees are happening. Because if you have personal planets between 6 degrees of Leo and 17 degrees of Cancer, especially, there's going to be some strong resonance happening in there. If you have angles, so if you have your ascendant, descendant, your MC, your IC, pay attention. Like, this is going to be huge, which I do. Do you? Like, what do you have?
So I know I'm just like going over this. So for me, my nodes are 4 degrees Leo and Aquarius. So I'm going to be having Pluto edging towards hitting my south node. Mars is going to station pretty much retrograde on my south node, my north node, sorry. And my moon is at 27 degrees of Cancer. So, oh my God, Mars and the moon 3 times. That's fucking crazy. Yeah. And Pluto for me is also 22 degrees of Libra. So I'm going to be having that square. So I'm going to be having Mars squaring my Pluto whilst being on my moon and activating my North Node. What a fucking mixed bag this is. Like,
Oh my gosh,
holy
how
shit. I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. So this is where, please, people, like, consult your astrologist, because this could be, this isn't about doom and glooming it. This is about alignment and making creative use of the energy that is. And the more that we can, again, come equipped with a level of detachment and understanding, then we can actually move through this period, not by bypassing discomfort, but with awareness and a level of surrender. So, yeah. So anyway, the station is in December 7th. So in the other side of the world, the 6th, depending on where you are. The Mars opposition, so Sun, Mars, is the 16th of Jan. And then Mars retrograde ends again at, and the Mars-Sun opposition is at 26 degrees of Cancer, Capricorn. And then Mars retrograde ends on the 24th of Feb. So it will be the 23rd in other parts of the world at 17 degrees of Cancer. So it's a big chunk of time, and it's over that. I mean, for us in Australia, it's the summertime. And I don't find that too bad in terms of, like, we're all kind of in holiday mode anyway. But it's usually when people start going back to work in January that they find it difficult. So Mars, because it is connected to us progressing and moving forward and, like, powering on and going after what we want and chasing our desires, usually when it is direct, we're forging through. When we have the station of the retrograde, then this is like, okay, we're not moving forward. Why aren't we getting what we want? Why is this not working out for me? So there's a lot of this frustration and a lot of this anger and a lot of this resistance, and it can feel defeating. It can feel defeating, especially when you think about Mars, which is about protection. And in these archetypes, Leo and Cancer, especially Cancer, it's very defensive. It's like protector vibes. And even though Cancer is a water sign, it is strongly connected to the ego. It is the first water sign. So I find that Cancer is like, it's oceanic in the sense of, like, the flat, like the water on the surface. All right. So anything that impacts the water and hits it, it's going to feel the ripples. It's going to feel that first impact and it's going to respond accordingly. And so there is a little bit of that ego sense of, like, feeling threat, protect, defend, so it is still a very ego-driven sign, but in a watery way. So this could be impactful in terms of our ego defenses and what is pinging and coming up for us in terms of, like, not getting what we want, not getting the outcome or the desired results, or having to wait. And that can be quite frustrating for a lot of people, especially because we operate in a capitalistic society where we are conditioned to hustle. And so when we need to slow down and pause, actually a lot of people don't know how to do that. And so that's why I remember last Mars retrograde, there was so much burnout. Like, a lot of people were experiencing burnout. And this is where we can see a direct reflection in going against what the astrology is trying to invite us into. So whether you want to schedule some time out or really free up space in your calendar, that's really what I would recommend for that period of time. Allow yourself more space to flow, to be creative. Don't try and put yourself in a position where, and I'm not saying that things aren't going to work out and we can't use this, because we can definitely bring plans into fruition. However, it is in such a way that it is truly driven by, there's a difference between flowing and moving with alignment and pushing against something that does not want to happen. So you have to be able to sit within yourself that difference between, what am I doing here? You know, like, am I pushing for something that intuitively it's like it's a no, or it's not going to happen, or it doesn't feel good anymore? And being able to really reconcile those differences and move with what wants to happen. So again, this is all about reclaiming power, which means that we are becoming more aware of our energy. And this is very much how I use astrology anyway. It's like to become aware of my energy and my relationship to what is happening and what I do when I'm triggered and how I choose to respond. And, you know, so I think that, again, using astrology this way, it's a deepening into your journey here. So again, you know, some of the things that might be in the air in a Mars retrograde will be things to do with safety. And also Mars is out of bounds as well. And so we had Mars retrograde in Gemini out of bounds. And so I've got the dates for when it is out of bounds, which is actually from the 30th of December 2024 to the 7th of April 2025. So pretty much overlapping the retrograde period. And we need to remember when Mars is out of bounds, it's basically beyond the limits of the sun. So think about blind spots, this idea of like you got your blinkers on and that you actually can't see what's happening either side. So this is also a Mars that doesn't have any, that doesn't have like a guardian, you know, it's like kind of a bit rebellious in terms of there's no one watching it, and because the sun can't see it. So it's not going to play by the rules, you know, it might be erratic, it might be out of control. It could be, so we can see extreme expressions of this energy come up and out in the collective. Again, I think that burnout is definitely a thing that I want to stress in terms of being able to resource yourself with the support during that time, because this is to do with the will. And so whilst we do have access to an endless supply of energy coming from nature, not a lot of us live in that way. And so we are pulling upon reserves all the time and pushing our energy out towards projects, people, places, and things outside of us that often aren't in alignment. So whether that is you engaging in things when internally it feels like a no. So this is where we get stretched out of our energy and out of our power. And this is where the invitation is to come into awareness of actually our boundaries. Again, the idea of boundaries. So it is probably going to be an erratic, unpredictable transit, but we do have certain energetic themes coming from the aspects of this Mars retrograde, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But there are just some other dates that I want to throw out there in terms of Mars entering Cancer in September, on the 5th of September. So again, it's not necessarily we're going to feel the themes of Mars in Cancer from the time it enters. So it's like we can start to pay attention with where this is in our chart. And again, embodied astrology is all about observing what happens when it happens. So it's like being in present time. So knowing, okay, Mars is in Cancer now. How am I feeling? How is it like, what am I noticing in my surroundings? Like, how are the people around me engaging? What's going on with my solar plexus? What's my energy like? So just noticing what's starting to happen at that time. And then Mars is entering Leo on the 7th of November, 2024. Again, a little bit of an energy shift, going from water to fire. How does that feel for me? And this is going to be direct. So this could feel, again, so we want to pay attention to what is starting to come into fruition in the direct motion of these energies. What projects, what interactions, what themes are coming up. This is where we can observe and notice and start to begin bringing awareness to the story of what this transit means for us individually, but also obviously pay attention to what's happening out in the world collectively. So then we have, so we've got, I'll give the key dates for the Mars opposition to Pluto and the square to Chiron when I actually talk about those signatures. But I just wanted to mention before I talk about that was that we can, you know, the last Mars retrograde in Leo was over 2009 to 2010. And, you know, energetically, you could think about, okay, was there anything significant happening for me during that time? There might be, there might not be. Again, it probably depends on the aspects within your chart. This was a very different type of energy because there was that Mars retrograde was opposite Chiron and Neptune in Aquarius. And there was Jupiter in Aquarius as well. And also, interestingly, what I found in terms of my research at that time, on January 12th, so during that Mars retrograde transit, there was one of the deadliest earthquakes on record. That was Haiti. That was that huge, huge global phenomenon. Now that did involve Neptune, and Uranus was doing things as well. However, you know, it was a huge socio-politic thing, you know, so that was a really big timestamp. And when we're looking at working with this Mars cycle, so Mars works in 2 cycles. We've got the regular Mars synodic cycle, which is the relationship to the sun. So essentially, this retrograde is a reset or a beginning of a new Mars retrograde cycle or Mars sun cycle. So we've got that smaller cycle that's happening, and we have a Mars retrograde every 2 years, and it's one of the rarer retrogrades, kind of like Venus retrograde. So it's not every year. Of course, we know we experience Mercury retrogrades all the time, the outer planet station retrograde every year. So that's why we pay attention to Venus and Mars. So there's that smaller cycle happening. And then there is the larger 47-year cycle. So this is where we have Mars retrograde, and we are experiencing it in the same archetype. So when we're tracking, okay, when was that last time in terms of this larger cycle? That's 47 years ago. So that's at the same position in relation to, the archetype, the earth, the sun. So basically, you know, if we look back energetically to that time, that was 1980. And so, you know, again, I don't really want to fully talk politics, so I'll just state things that was around that time. So it was in about March, and there were squares to actually Uranus, and it was during eclipse season. So very erratic, unstable time. And that was when there was disturbance between America and Iran. So again, Middle East politics. There were American hostages involved, and America severed diplomatic relations with Iran due to that stuff happening. So, you know, that's simply looking at the energetics that was happening during that time. There seems to be the theme of power. I mean, there is in all of these things. There's power, corruption, manipulation, but strong Mars energy is going to bring a dose of power, control, tyranny, warlike energies. Again, we're trying to be neutral, but we need to understand realistically, like, what this is all about. I remember in the last interview because I spoke about the nodes, I spoke about Aries and Libra, and I brought up the fact that there was a war last time, that happened. And so I'm not predicting that it's going to happen, but it's like, just look at the cycles. And so we're now in it again. Have we learned? I don't know. Obviously not. You know, this is a very slow race, it seems to be. But it does make a difference what we all do individually. That does impact. So again, that's why I love that you offer this to people, because this is all about empowering ourselves with the knowledge and in how we can become more awakened to what's going on. So anyway, yeah, I think that looking at a Mars retrograde cycle, it's going to help us gain clarity over what we want, like potentially help us because if something doesn't go our way or there's setbacks, it's an invitation to maybe re-strategize or look at, okay, do I need a different approach? Do I even want that thing anymore? Do I need to let it go? Because Mars is also about cutting and severing. So maybe it is about cutting some things loose and shaking off the dead fruits, you know, off the tree. So it's about being realistic, letting go what we can't control. That's a huge thing as well. We want to pay attention to our will, our drives, and our desires during this time, and really thinking about, okay, what do you want to happen? And needing to establish a level of non-attachment to that. Because, you know, we can have desires and we can have wants and we can have goals and we can want to achieve things, but at the same breath, we have to understand that we sometimes, well, often, I don't think we do know all the answers. And sometimes we have to surrender into the greater plan that wants to happen. So if there is a setback, if there is something, then do you need to let this thing go? You know, often there's this big question mark that is surrounding, why aren't I moving forward? I remember when I was doing readings during the last Mars retrograde, everyone was like, I don't know where I'm going. I have no sense of direction. You know, these are key things. No sense of direction, don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's going to happen. How long is this going to take? Why isn't this working out? It's like, okay, we need to learn to surrender here because this is like an important timestamp in slowing down, being more present, really calling all of your energy back, maybe having a bit of a sabbatical, not needing to push forward all the time. You know, in the grand scheme of things, this is over a period of time, which is like December, January, February. This is a slow period for a lot of people anyway. So leaning into that energetically and not always having to set your, you know, yearly goals and ambitions and like go for it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if that is something that isn't in alignment, then why? Like, why are we needing to act like this world is a competitive place all the time? That's warlike energy. It's not always about that. There's not limited resources that only a few people are going to get a hold of. It's like there's enough for everyone, you know, getting out of this scarcity mindset. And really it's about reprogramming from survival into thriving. And rest is an important part of that thriving. So did you want to say something while I'm
you can see that? Well, and because I just going on what you were talking about not forcing things and stuff, I wanted to speak into just to remind everyone too that 2025 we're in a numerology 9 year, and so that is endings and releasing, and it's going to be fucking crazy. The fact that we starting the year with Mars retrograde in a collective 9, but January is also a 9 month. So we enter a brand new year in a 9 month, in a 9 year, and Mars is retrograde. And there's some pretty big things happening in January with the Mars retrograde as well. So that is definitely, you know, a month that, you know, I take January off every year because Capricorn's my IC. So that's a season for me that I'm at the beach and that I'm with my family and I dedicate that anyway. So that's just normal for me. So it's great timing. Even though Mars is going to be in my 10th house, this is going to be very fucking interesting. But You know, that's why knowing your own seasons of your chart and knowing the collective and what's going on too is that this isn't a time to push forward, exactly what Amber was saying. And I wanted just to reiterate that with, yeah, not only is everything Amber's saying just bang on about not forcing and pushing and having it to be like, I have to do all the things, you know, actually, you know, 2025 kicks off a 9 collective year, and it's a 9 month. So you're sort of not going to be going anywhere fast anyway. And being in, you know, and Mars will be in Cancer, you know, like again, his fall position, it's very moody and broody and emotional and defensive, like you said, and very nip, 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 you know, but the thing about Mars in Cancer too is extremely ambitious. You know, Mars in Cancer is very driven and very ambitious. So you might be finding again those delays and setbacks of what you're trying to push forward, because it's a time, Mars retrograde is a time to reevaluate what your actions are. Remember, Mars is that action as well. So, you know, and of course, yes, with the anger and the war and, you know, Mars in Cancer, very passive aggressive, very moody, you know, like I can't imagine just, you know, it's just a whole lot of leaders just not talking to each other or talking in circles because they're being passive aggressive, you know, like that is Mars in Cancer 101, right? It retreats to its shell. It wants to come out and nip, but then it's going to retreat because it's super sensitive. So it is a very trepidous time, January 2025, like collectively on the numerology level, you know, starting the year off with Mars retrograde in its fall, like this is going to be interesting to say the least. Yeah.
To say the least, I know.
Yeah.
So some of the things that, again, we want to notice in ourselves is where we're getting attached. So we want to notice our attachments to things in terms of getting what we want and holding on to that. And again, forcing something to happen. We also want to notice our relationship to anger, of course, and frustrations, and our ego defenses. So it is a time of maybe potential conflict. Again, it depends where this is happening in your chart, but it is about conflict, boundaries. And I think especially one of the things that I feel is very strong with Mars in Leo in particular is this advocate, and thinking about, again, we'll talk about Pluto because Pluto will be in opposition, advocating for ourselves and others. It's a strong Mars, Leo, Pluto, Aquarius thing that's happening there. You also want to ask yourself, what do I feel called to protect or defend? So it's not saying that we need to completely thwart our desires and our power, but it's really, again, being intentional with where we want to put our energy. And again, I think that it's important to have it as a reflective period about how you actually engage in conflict. And do you tend to, again, snap, go into defense mode, your ego gets triggered, like all of these things. It's going to be a strong period of self-reflection and hard truths, and remembering that boundary setting is probably going to be a theme that will come up very strongly during Mars retrograde. So this particular transit is flavored very strongly by Chiron and Pluto, which is what is going to really probably determine what we see and how we experience it. So Mars is going to square Chiron 3 times. We have the first square on the 14th of October 2024 at 21 degrees of Cancer. We have the retrograde square, so the second hit of that on the 19th of Feb 2025 at 19 Cancer. We have the third and final square, which will be in its direct motion, 27th of March 2025 at 22 degrees Cancer. This is all Australian time, so depending on where you are in the world. So yeah, that square to Chiron, I think, is going to bring us an opportunity to see if we are, how we actually carry our burdens and our frustrations. And are we bringing this stuff from the past? Because that's what's stopping us from moving forward. Because Chiron is also doing healing our wounds. So I think this is a very triggering transit. It can hit sensitive spots, especially Mars in Cancer. If we aren't willing to really be with the things in the past and look at them in different ways and actively work on healing these things, of course, we're going to be triggered from the past, and we're going to keep recreating the same thing. This is how cycles work. And how we don't break karmic patterns and cycles is if we don't look at them with awareness and actively work on breaking them. So history will repeat until we make the choice not to do the same thing and we actively choose to do something different. This is how we heal the wound. This is how we work with Chiron energy. And it's becoming aware of how we engage in battles, engage in conflict, and essentially give our power away to these things outside of us. And I think, just observing the current period of time that we're in and seeing the world in the way that it is, this is a very triggering time for every single person. And it's really interesting to see how people engage in this energy. And, there's a whole mixed bag of things. It's like people are going like full advocating, and then there are some people sitting back, and like there's just such a mix of things. And the common theme is that no one really knows how to respond, and everyone's judging how each other responds, and there seems to be no correct way to do anything, because it's like everything is judged and condemned, and if you're not doing this, then you're on this side, and if you're not doing that, you're on that side. So it's just so interesting to observe this conflict energy at the moment. And for me, what I notice within myself is, okay, where do I feel pulled to respond in a way that doesn't feel authentic to me, but maybe is what the narrative wants of me, right? So it's really taking an honest look at, okay, but then that is me not engaging in a way that actually feels true for me. So sometimes what we choose to do is the thing that's going to trigger other people, and other people aren't going to like the way that we respond. Other people aren't going to like when we set a boundary. Other people aren't going to like when we do the opposite to what they want us to do. Because when someone wants to engage in conflict in you, it's because they want your energy. That's what conflict is. It's energy harvesting. It's drawing upon power by creating a desired response that fuels more of that. It's like a tornado, right? So if you remove yourself from that situation, you can't feed it. So therefore, that's how we disarm that. And often it feels quite unnatural to do that, especially if you come from a background where you feel like you need to constantly defend yourself all the time. So everyone responds differently in different ways, but it's really taking a good look at how we deal with conflict, anger, and frustration, and how we can choose more aligned ways and practices to engage in that actually helps us to move forward and clear what's trying to happen in terms of war, oppression, all of these dark energies that we don't want to feed and fuel. So the next really strong aspect is between Mars and Pluto. And we had a Mars in Leo at 0 degrees opposite Pluto at 0 degrees earlier this year. And I remember that was such an intense time, that fixed bloody Grand Cross. It was a very intense time. And I'm sure a lot of people felt the frustration. I remember I was getting a lot of feedback from people around me and my clients, just the frustration and just that fix, like, oh. So, you know, we're going to have an opportunity to be with that again, but in a deeper way. And there's a lesson there. And, you know, so if you want to reflect around the time of May 21st, that was when Mars entered Leo and it directly opposed Pluto in Aquarius for the first time. So again, that really strong, I mean, this is explosive energy. This is an inability to control our impulses and our desires. And it's like huge, really big, huge energy. It's without restraint. So often, you know, what we can experience during this time is, you know, what I feel energetically in terms of the collective, it's going to be a big power play. We're going to see huge power plays, and especially looking at these archetypes of Leo and Cancer, because the oppositions are going to happen in both signs. So we have the first Mars in Cancer opposite Pluto on the 3rd of November at 29 degrees. Ugh, you know, that in itself, I'm like, ugh, shudders. That 29 degrees of Capricorn. Capricorn, Cancer, matriarchy, patriarchy, power, you know, the powers that be, that we perceive, that, you know, we think that there is something more powerful outside of us. Very manipulative, you know, that kind of, yes. I know, do you want to say something about that?
Well, also just as a highlight to remember that this is also the final time that Mars will ever oppose Pluto in this axis ever in our lives. So that is a complete ending, you know, that is, you know, that anaretic degree of Mars and Pluto, two very volcanic, explosive planets, making this opposition for the final time. Like that in itself, that I've got the dates from the 1st to the 4th. So that whole 4 days of November of 2024, like fucking be on your, like, you know yourself. Like just, you know, watch what's happening collectively, watch what's happening within you, because it's, you know, for the final time ever, I thought that was pretty, you know, that's fucking noteworthy, right?
It is. Again, like this is all about power and control and manipulation and all of these energies. It's basically a relationship to that which is outside of you. So you can believe that you don't have the power to create your own reality. That's up to you. But if you want to entertain the fact, well, maybe not the fact, but you could entertain the idea that you actually have full control over your own reality. It's literally how you choose to live it and how you perceive it and how you engage with what is outside of you. So do you want to keep feeding the thing that you're constantly pushing up against, or do you want to take the power back in terms of your own autonomy and how you want to experience life and how you want to choose to live? And this is understanding that the world, again, it's like we can go into these big thoughts around why the world is the way that it is, and that life is inherently unfair because look at all of the inequality. It's like we have to get really real with the fact that life is going to lie. There is no explanation for sometimes the things that happen, and that you can also simultaneously have empathy for what is happening, but also choose to live a life that feels good for you and not feel guilty for that and not feel like you should be doing more in terms of, you know, again, this is like a charged topic, but I know a lot of people that are living really beautiful lives right now at the same time as having empathy of what is happening in the world collectively. And it's being able to understand that your role and what you play and how you're contributing to the expansion and the co-creation of the universe is you being in peace and being in love. And how you're going to achieve that if you're constantly engaging with the powers outside of you in this way that actually wants to harvest your energy and control you to some extent and keep you capped and keep you stuck in capitalism and create separation and keep you angry, keep you fighting. You know, it's like there's so many other ways to use our energy right now and in the future and ongoing, and we're going to see many opportunities to come into that awareness. So again, it's like thinking about, okay, things are probably going to happen outside of us. How are we going to respond to that? Really be conscious around what your response is during that time. Because it does matter. This is where, yes, what every one of us choose to do does matter in how we engage. And again, I'm not saying that there is a particular way to do anything, but I really do feel that if we keep doing the same thing, if we keep fighting, like that doesn't work. That clearly doesn't work. It's not contributing to anything. And it's also understanding that we can get triggered into becoming the thing that we are against. So looking at right now, how does, not even logically, I guess for me, it doesn't make sense for me to engage in a way that is in the same way that the oppressor is right now, in terms of like what's going on in the world. So again, it's a really big pattern break and a pattern shift. And it's these are the power dynamics that are presenting themselves: power, control, manipulation, instilling fear, all of that kind of stuff. So being aware of how you want to engage in that is a huge lesson in that Mars-Pluto opposition, because it's going to be turbulent. Yeah. Do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, no, I'm just in a complete agreement. Yes, absolutely. Are you going to talk about the fixed sign opposition?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
That's ultimately the general theme of Mars opposite Pluto, but of course we then move into the fixed sign opposition. Yeah.
Yes. So then we have the next one, which is at 1 degree. So we have Mars at 1 degree of Leo opposing Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius, and that is on the 3rd of Jan 2025. That is exactly conjunct my MCIC. So that'll be a time. And then the third is going to be the direct Mars at 3 degrees of Leo and 3 degrees Pluto Aquarius. So that's the 27th of April 2025. So we have November, January, April. This is a really big extended period of time of this very volatile aspect. And I think, just generally the themes of Leo and Aquarius advocating for ourselves and others. What are we willing to fight for? And I use the word fight as in fight doesn't have to mean battle it out. Again, I've already spoken about being aware of your energy. But even when it comes to, wordplay, like fighting for peace could actually mean being boundaried in terms of what our peace needs. That's fighting for your peace, but not in a way that you might typically think, in a way that is actually not acting.
I think that even a better word is protecting. For me, with Mars and Taurus, like I protect my peace at any cost and do not, be misguided in my silence because I know what's going on, but my inner peace outweighs the need to fight or, you're either contributing to the collective consciousness or you're contaminating. And again, the contamination is the fight, but the protection is the contribute. That's just how I see that on a wordplay.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think it's going to be a deep lesson for a lot of us in how we actually engage and what peace means. And what advocating means. And again, it's like we all didn't grow up learning how to set healthy boundaries because no one knew really probably what that was. And we did, like, there was a time ancestrally that we had to like, if we think back generations, and we're all an accumulation of our ancestors and everyone that came before us. So it is in our DNA to some extent to have to comply in order to survive. But we're not there anymore. This is where we need to remember we're not there anymore. Like, we're talking about 2025. We have evolved. So it's time to stop operating in those ways and actually get on board with the timeline. Like, let's go. Let's make our ancestors proud now and not repeat the same thing. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it really is a massive retrograde. Like, the themes and the aspects really give these sorts of retrogrades a signature, and that's why when you're looking at, you know, a retrograde in any way, shape, or form, like, knowing the signatures and the aspects that are going on that taint this experience, and to have Pluto involved and Chiron, you know, as you know, there's also some Uranus stuff, and you know, we've got Mars actually, you know, trining Neptune, which is really nice. Like, that's just going to be a fucking joy.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some really fascinating aspects, and you know, even the fire, like that Mars retrograde will also trine the North Node in Leo, like, you know, in Aries, and then, you know, Mars is the ruler of the North Node at the moment. So there's actually, this is like penetratingly a breakthrough if we can allow it to be a breakthrough, like on a micro and a macro level. Like, this is the North Node ushering us in. The nodes are playing strong in whilst Mars is in Leo. You know, there's the trine and the sextile. So it's like, the opportunities to move away, but the, you know, this new direction of Aries North Node calling us in, but then that square to Chiron too. It's like, this is big identity crisis. You know, like, I think that the whole world is going through an identity crisis. So, you know, to have Mars then be the ego and the physical body, and that direct experience of ego and the body and vitality and anger and all of the things, I'm like, yeah, it is definitely a signature. I mean, I've written about it in my 2024 kit, of course, because it's a signature. You know, it is a signature transit, and it does take us into 2025, which really does show that, you know, we're really not kicking off 2025 the way that people are going to expect to kick off 2025 at all.
No, are we ever? I mean, are we ever entering a year of what we think? Again, it's this idea of you need to release all expectation to some extent around what you think is going to happen, and just really get real, control what you can control, and let go of
everything else
outside of you that you can't control.
And I mean, even on a liquid crystal level, the day that Mars stations retrograde is Eye Light Day, which is all around vision and new visions. And then when he stations direct, I mean, I'll talk more about this in a masterclass that I'll do you know, obviously I'll do a masterclass on this myself, but, you know, like, I will talk more into the actual liquid crystals and stuff. But the 24th of February, when Mars is stationing direct in 2025, it's on Howlight, which is around spiritual beginning. So it's sort of just like, this then begins the next journey. And I just wanted to say a couple of other sort of dates just for everyone to keep their eyes on, is that the actual pre-shadow begins the 5th of October. So from the 5th of October all the way through until the 4th of May 2025, Mars is going over those exact same degrees from 17 Cancer to 6 Leo. So that part is a hot spot for literally October, November, December, January, February, March, April, 8 months. That is a long time. And all of the things in between with the aspects and things, so much of what Amber has shared today, you know, will continue to be spoken about, of course, through all of us astrologers as time gets closer. But the pre-shadow, you know, from the 5th of October, that's your peak. Tune the fuck on, turn the fuck on, because Mars is now at 17 degrees of Cancer, and he is going to tell you exactly what will come up for you over that time you know, from the 7th of December through till the 24th of February, his actual retrograde. And then we don't even get out of that. He moves back through all of those degrees again until May the 4th. So of 20, you know, it's a big 8 months. So, you know, check in, you know, highlight 6 degrees of Leo and 17 degrees of Cancer. Check if it's on angles, like poor Amber's going to have to go through again, you know, far out, that Pluto not moving anywhere. So, you know, it's a big time. You know, you want to highlight that area, and then again, any planets in between 6 degrees Leo, 17 Cancer, you know, in the other fixed and cardinal signs. And you're going to, you know, Mars is going to be agitating that. He is going to be moving energy through that. And yeah, like always in a Mars retrograde, it's like letting go, knowing that the delay is the way and that the obstacle is the path. You know, that is the importance of a Mars retrograde.
Yes, yeah. The medicine is exactly where you need to be, even if it's not where you want to be.
Exactly.
It's all about humbling the ego.
Absolutely. The ego humbling, and oh my God, especially in Leo and Cancer on some level, you know, the masculine and the feminine. Straight away, we're working with the feminine, lunar, the moon, who rules Cancer, and then we're working with the sun. Like, we have nowhere to go. This is our psyche being activated and our sense of purpose being activated. You know, to have Mars retrograde through the sun and the moon signs, like that's, you know, that's fucking wild. You know, it's again, it will really be affecting us. We're going to feel this Mars retrograde. You know, Mars in Gemini was so fucking cerebral that everyone was having like fucking meltdowns. But this is going to be emotional and physical. Yes.
In the body.
In the body. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Whew, it's going to be a big time, darling. Shake it off. Shake it off, my God. Shake it off.
I will say, if you have like something that you want to create in terms of a long-term plan, I mean, I would probably use this energy to conceptualize and spend a lot of time and brew and re-strategize on something that maybe you want to do after, you know. So like you could use this as like a deep dive into something, like being with something that you're not in a rush to want to birth right away. But you need
hence Mars's frustration with that, because Mars wants to rush. Mars wants to move through things. So this is about patience, you know.
Exactly, it is. Yes. Yeah.
And that's what we want. You know, I've always, you know, for 10 plus years, I've been talking about a Toyota is built in 7 weeks. A Mercedes-Benz, a Rolls-Royce is built in 7 months. Do you want a Toyota or do you want a Rolls-Royce? Like, you can't rush greatness. You know, if you know, it's like people planting the seed and going out the next day, like, where's my thing? I'm manifesting. Like, fucking no, you're not. Like, you're rushing the system, and that's not how true manifesting works anyway. So it's like Toyota or Rolls-Royce, take your pick, but Mars will slow you down, and that's up to you. You fight it or you resist it, and that's futile for you, because Mars will still keep Marsing. Like, Mars will still keep Marsing whether you're fighting it and square pegging round holing. Like, that's your call. So it's definitely the invitation, the deep invitation to surrender and be patient with what's brewing. And I've just, you know, come up with something that I'll definitely use in my masterclass about being in the womb. You know, we're going to be in the womb of creation with Mars in Cancer, and it's going to be very interesting, you know, to say the least. And I'm a moon in Cancer, baby. So, I mean, this is going to be big for me, and it's going to be hitting my moon 3 times. So I'm definitely not having another baby, so don't even worry about that. But and if you have moon in Cancer too, from that 17 degrees to 29 degrees, like, you know, let's join the fucking womb party here. Like, what's going to happen for us? You know, it's going to be very interesting. A big signature to pay attention to, Amber, and you have just nailed everything as usual. I love listening to you, and I'm just so grateful that you came and you chose that topic. I'm so glad that you just straight away just went, let's do Mars retrograde. I'm like,
yes. I mean, as we can see, like, we had to talk about it. It's huge. So loved it.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I hope that everyone has loved this conversation. I mean, I think that all of my 2024 ones are like an hour, which I think is nice. There's a lot of deep, rich conversation happening for 2024 panel, which I'm really like just frothing on. And this was certainly one of them. And I'm just, I'm pumped to share all of this with everyone. And, you know, I appreciate all of your effort and note taking, and giving us all the lowdown on this Mars retrograde, Amber. So thank you so much for joining us.
I'm always just like loving our chat, so it's just a pleasure. Thanks.
We could talk about it's just normal for us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just everyone's just watching it and listening.
That's right.
Our usual chats. Yes. Oh, love you lots, darling. Thank you for joining. Thanks everyone for watching.
Bye everyone.
Big love.